Reena, what is in your chronicles of abuse that you want to share with people out there, people who may be victims who are still looking for the courage to come out?
Thank you for inviting me on the show, first of all. And it was really nice reconnecting with Lisa in DC. We have not seen each other in person in 2 decades. It's been over 2 decades. And we saw each other almost every day back in those days. We were so much happier too. We were just different women. We were young. We were, excited, starting our careers in New York City. Lisa wanted to be a model. I wanted to be this, artist. And, we were just full of life and youth. And I just remember I was going through a very hard breakup one summer. And, Lisa saw how depressed I was, and she knew, because I told her I should really focus on myself, I should focus on my artwork, and I wanted to meet people in the art world. And she mentioned Jeffrey, that he was an art patron, and he was. He collected a lot of artwork, and I got to meet him. He became my art patron. And then right off the start, he offered me that he was going to help me with my art career. And he dictated how I should be pursuing an art career in his way, in his manner. He was very, very persistent, in his dictation. You're going to go to this school, take these types of classes, you need this type of degree. If you don't have these things, you're not going to succeed in the art world. And he mentioned all the connections that he had. And I was really young and naive, I come from a culture, I'm Korean, and in the Korean culture, with your elders, even if they're 5 years older or 10 years older, you usually don't argue and you don't say no. So I was already accustomed to not saying no. I just, shook my head and said yes to everything. And that's how he lured me in. And in this way, he created this long-term relationship from the beginning. I'm going to send you to college. That was a dream come true for me at the time. So here, he already established as a predator a 4-year relationship without me even knowing. In his mind, he was already planning this because, he's a serial predator and he was very strategic. And this is how I was lured in. And he almost kind of grabbed me right away. I didn't end up going to school for 4 years, and down the road, things unraveled, like Lisa said, and I was able to see the flaws. And when the college thing didn't work with me, when I tried to get away from him, he would bring something else into the picture and offer me something else. Well, I can get you a job. Now I'm going to give you a job. And they kept offering new things and getting me to come back. And that's why I kept going back.
Why is it that something is being held back, and that is really upsetting all of those victims and all of those survivors out there?
I think maybe a lot of those names may be names that we are familiar with. That's my suspicion. It's obviously, like Lisa said before, they're powerful names or people who have power. Otherwise, if they didn't have power, they would have released their names. If there is a list. I know for a fact that there are men who were involved who were doing things with the girls. I met a few of those men. I didn't do anything with them, but I met them in Florida. So is there a list? Is there an actual client list? An Excel spreadsheet? I doubt it. It's not something that they would have kept in a journal. I think this is all a list that was memorized, if that makes any sense.
So who were these? Politicians, billionaires, royals? I'm not asking names. I'm just saying who were these people? Profile.
So for my my own witness account, when I was in Florida, I met two different men, and they were older. I didn't know who they were. I don't remember their names. I don't even know if I was introduced to them by their first name. I was just kind of like shown around like I was a piece of merchandise by Jeffrey and Ghislaine in Palm Beach. And I was taken out. He had a photograph of me on his desk, and it was lined up in a way where it didn't look like a photo that he was looking at. It was a photograph that was clearly facing the opposite direction. So if you walked into the living room, you would see my photograph along with a group of other girls and all of their pictures. So this was my experience in Florida, and they held me in the house. I didn't even realize that it wasn't a vacation, that I was there for a different reason other than taking, a week vacation, a break, or staying with a friend. They never really took us out. We didn't have money. There was another girl with me there. We weren't taken to the beach. This is Palm Beach. I was expecting to at least see some sand. We didn't see any sand. I don't recall having access to telephones. I didn't get to call my family to let them know where I was. They escorted us, with either, I think it was Jeffrey who was actually driving us around everywhere. And the only times we actually went out were the times where he showed us to other men. So I know, referring to the client list, I'm not exactly sure we can call it a client list. I think that word, that phrase, it's become a buzzword. It makes it sound a lot scarier to anyone who may be on that list if they were friends with Jeffrey, if they knew Ghislaine. But they were men who were definitely around them, who were benefiting from these relationships with Jeffrey and Ghislaine. And there were things that were happening with the girls.
And you have to also remember they weren't famous men. So right. Most of the girls that saw them couldn't identify them anyway. I mean, you wouldn't be able to really, you could say like, older man, but they weren't like, it was like good looking older men that looked like movie stars. They were men that kind of all looked similar and older. And from talking to other survivors, most of them had kind of no idea who they were to even identify them. It's not like they were, like Rena said, introduced by name, full names. I'm sure that was strategic on Jeffrey's, side.